Hello gamers, I'm Encasio, and in this video we are going to talk about some, let's say, information that came after the Throne and Liberty technical beta test, as well as some changes that the game is going through during development. Basically, this is a video for those that want to know what has been going on with Throne and Liberty lately. I did not sign an NDA, so I'm under no obligation to keep quiet about this. That being said, I will not be sharing any footage or screenshots from the technical test because I could still get in trouble for that. If you want to see leaks and reviews related to this technical beta, you will have to find them yourself. The only hint that I can give you is that these leaks are being shared in some Discord servers. But I have heard rumors that AGS is taking this NDA very seriously, so that is all I'm going to say. If you have been actively following the game, you probably already know about all these changes, or at the very least you might have been aware they were going to happen. I do not know if this video will offer you any new information in that case, but unlike before when these changes were just being talked about, they are now actively happening. This video will also double as a recap for people that are just keeping an eye out for the game. The first is the change to combat. They have changed the game from an old school static combat to a combat that allows movement while skills are being cast and is sort of a hybrid action combat. This change is sure to upset people that enjoy old school MMOs. Personally, I am happy with this change and I know a lot of other people are too. I was going to try the game anyway, but I was always unsure about the combat. This change makes me a bit more confident that I will enjoy the game. Of course, this is not perfect, and if you want to nitpick, there are still quite a few things that need to be worked on, like the way targeting works or how left and right click work, and stuff like that. But I think since they are actively working on this aspect, there is no reason to focus on the negatives and wasting your time with this, since it's highly likely that this is going to be improved at release. The main point here is that the game will feature a hybrid action combat and not a static old school combat. Another change that is happening is the increase in PvE content and the reduction of the dynamic open world PvP. A lot of people misunderstood. This game never featured free open world PvP. This game had events and bosses that would appear in the open world. Sometimes these activities got designated as open world PvP activities, and people would be allowed to PvP in these designated areas. On top of this, open world PvP was enabled at night in the Korean test. The game also had open world dungeons that were PvP zone, as well as the most important PvP activities, which are territory control and sieges. So how do things look now? Well, the ratio of events and world bosses that become PvP activities is being reduced. I mentioned a second ago that there was PvP during the night. Well, they are changing that, and PvP will only be available during some nights. And there is a real possibility they will remove this feature altogether, considering some of the things that have been already said. They are adding a lot more world bosses, and they are also adding PvE dungeons. Anyone that has been playing MMORPGs for a while has probably already expected these changes, and it was inevitable, because MMOs are mainly PvE games. Of course, unless the developers want to create a dead game, like Mortal Online 2, Life is Feudal MMO, or whatever other dead PvP MMOs are out there. This is just not a genre where focusing on PvP works. And when developers say they will focus on PvP and PvE equally, they are straight up lying, only to gain a few more players. Players that will inevitably be disappointed when this is not true. We have seen it happen with games like New World, which even now, 2 years after release, they still have very few PvP activities, especially compared to the sizable amount of PvE content they have added. If you're smart, you'll understand that this will always likely be the case. It's pretty shitty that developers say that they will focus equally on PvP and PvE when they should know better than making promises they cannot keep. But given the vast amount of examples we have in this genre, you, as the player, should know better. I also imagine after the latest technical test, they will further reduce PvP. That being said, for those like me that enjoy PvP, the game still has a chance to have a very rewarding PvP experience. and I am pretty happy that they are providing activities for those of us that enjoy PvP. Even if reduced, the game will still have events and zones that will be PvP for limited times, and there will still be some PvP dungeons which most likely will have better drops than PvE ones. And of course, more importantly, sieges and territory control activities, which will be the main focus of PvP. Personally, I think this will be enough PvP activities to satisfy me, and I just hope that they will introduce some ranked arenas as well. Sadly, PvP might be heavily influenced by other elements like grinding your skills, gear and so on. And Throne and Liberty features a crazy amount of vertical progression, but more about this a bit later. All these changes are coming from Korea and will be applied to all versions of the game. Something that is very important to keep in mind is that Amazon's game studio is just a publisher and not the developer, so they are very limited in what they can change. Surely they will color some NPCs black and probably censor anything that they themselves find sexually appealing, but other than this, they have very limited control. Well, they do have the ability to adjust drop rates and turn off features, and during this technical test, they have done just that. They turned off the Autocombat feature called Astral Hunting. The bottom line is that this change was extremely poorly received by the testers. The vast majority of complaints about the game were related to this feature or in some way the domino effect that removing it had on the whole game, even if some people didn't understand that this was a direct result of them removing this feature. For example, the effect this will have on the economy and the availability of items. On top of this, there were various complaints about high-level players going to low-level PvP areas and griefing newbies, which will probably mean they will further reduce the available PvP. I hope they will do this by restricting activities to certain levels and not by removing it altogether. The game also has some amazing elements and the vast majority of those receive positive feedback. But all the problems that resulted from turning off Autocombat feature become extremely evident, and together with the griefing in PvP became the two biggest complaints. You have to understand that the game is built with Autocombat feature in mind, and this feature will still be active in Korea, where the game is being developed. This means that all the content that will come to the West will be directly from there, and AGS will only be able to adjust some drop rates and other variables. Disabling Autocombat will result in players having to do that grind manually. To put it simply, it's not fun. And maybe you have played BDO before, so grinding mobs is fine. This game is nothing like BDO. The spacing of mobs is terrible. They have no real mechanics. It's worse than BDO was at launch, and since then it came a very long way. This is the case for the places where you would use Autocombat. Personally, I highly doubt that the Korean developers will create two versions of the game and completely rework various elements to suit the game not having this feature. And I would say there is a lot of stuff built around this feature, so what we will be left with is probably an increased drop rate, which will only achieve one thing, and that is to put people that are using bots even further ahead. Of course, this is just a major problem in PvP. In PvE, I guess you could progress at your own pace, and you will be able to do only the activities that you find fun and just spend gold to progress when it comes to the boring stuff. What I'm trying to say is that if AGS does not re-enable this feature, you will only be left with a few choices if you want to have some fun in PvP. Either play 18 hours a day, use bots, buy gold from real money traders, or pay to win. Unless being cannon fodder for the players that do is enjoyable to you. I believe that the increase in drop rates and the removal of this feature will just make the game worse for the average player, as the gap between them and the people that play 18 hours a day, or people that use bots or pay-to-win players will grow larger and larger as time goes on. And overall, considering the vast majority of players will be average players, this will undoubtedly be bad for PvP, and we have seen countless examples of how these can create a miserable experience and environment and eventually kill the PvP, in some cases even kill the game. Think of Arcade. Of course, this issue is deeply rooted in other systems as well, but a feature that helps close the gap between the different kind of players are needed, and this is one such system. For example, a similar game that employs an astronomical amount of vertical progression is BDO, and before they implemented season servers and other catch-up mechanics, the game was pretty terrible for the average player. It's important to keep in mind that this was just a test, so maybe they will backtrack, or this could end up being just another entry in the long list of poor decisions AGS keeps making. Sometimes it seems they are not learning from their mistakes. After all, despite the massive bot problems they had when they released Lost Ark as a free-to-play title, they still made the same decision with Throne and Liberty. Time will tell, the game is getting close to release, so we will find out soon enough. To make myself clear, AGS is not some terrible publisher that does everything wrong. They did a good job with New World. It's in a very nice state for PvE players, and overall New World is a good MMORPG right now. But realistically, they don't care about their PvP player base, and some of us enjoy both PvP and PvE activities. It would have been very nice if they considered the effects their actions have on the PvP player base, especially since this game will have a decent amount of PvP activities. I hope I am wrong. I hope they change all the mechanics that rely on auto-combat. I hope they increase the mob density and add various mechanics that will make these spots require active grinding and make them less boring. However, just like wishing they would make the game buy to play, I think this is just a pipe dream. And it's not going to happen. So I think the more realistic approach is hoping that AGS will not interfere in the mechanics of the game and just do their job as a publisher without messing up the game. I think these are the main points that you should be aware of when it comes to Throne and Liberty. If anything else comes out, I will probably make an update video. For now, we are left waiting. Personally, I'm still looking forward to the game. Throne and Liberty has so many amazing elements, and I like the direction the Korean developers are taking the game because I know it will result in a game that will be much more popular and as a result, more enjoyable. That being said, I do not like the changes AGS is making, and because of that I'm not as excited as I was for the PvP side of the game. And I kinda dislike the fact that I will be pushed to pay to win if I want to have fun in PvP. In general, I dislike paying for progression, because it feels like I'm paying to have less content. But it seems like this will be the only legitimate way to have fun in PvP. Maybe this is exactly their intention, for us to be forced to fight with our wallets. Anyway, the game is still a few months from release at the very least, so maybe things will change. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Feel free to like, subscribe and comment. See you in the next one, gamers.